The next day, the queen could not shake the strange feeling that lingered from her encounter with the human. She had returned to her private chambers, seeking to put the incident out of her mind. She had seen hundreds, perhaps thousands, of criminals over her years as the ruler of the Zothan Empire. They came and went, their fates sealed with her judgment, but none had made her feel the way this one did. She sat in her throne, gazing out across the vast view of her empire. Ships sailed across the stars, moving in precise, coordinated patterns, as if her very gaze controlled them. Power was hers. She had ruled for centuries, with no one to challenge her, and yet that human's words echoed in her mind. Even a speck can make a difference. The thought was maddening. The queen dismissed the thought for now, focusing instead on the task at hand. The human was still locked in her prison, awaiting further judgment. It would be easy to execute him, to make an example of him, as she had done with countless others. But there was something inside her that prevented her from acting so quickly this time. She called for the human to be brought to her chamber. When he entered, he held his head high. There was no fear in his eyes, no sign of weakness. He walked in with the same calm, unbothered posture, as if he were about to have a simple conversation. It irritated her. "You are still alive," the queen said, her voice sharp. "Why do you think you deserve to be?" The human looked at her, unblinking. "I didn't say I deserve to be alive," he replied. "I just think the right to make a decision should belong to those who can think for themselves, to have a choice." The queen's eyes narrowed. "A choice? You had a choice. You chose to sabotage one of my empire's most valuable projects. You chose to disobey." "Now you will pay for your actions." "I didn't want to disobey," the human said, his voice steady. "But what choice did I have? You were going to destroy everything. My home, my people. What kind of choice is that?" The queen clenched her fists. She was used to control. She was used to being the one who decided the fate of others, not the other way around. But this human, this insignificant mechanic, was making her question everything. "You think you can change the galaxy with your actions?" she asked. "You, a mere mechanic, one who has never known power or control, dare to challenge the will of the Zothan Empire?" "I didn't challenge your will," the human answered. "I challenged the choices you made. Just because you have power doesn't mean you know what's right. If you cared about protecting the galaxy, you wouldn't be willing to destroy it just to maintain control."
The queen felt a pang in her chest.
His words were like a strike to her core. For the first time in her life, she began to wonder if what she had built, this empire of fear and domination, was really the right path. She had never questioned it before. It was how things had always been. But now, in the face of this human's conviction, she felt unsure. "Your words are dangerous," the queen said, her voice colder now, her anger rising. "You think you know better than me?"
"Than the entire empire?"
"I don't claim to know better," the human replied. "I just know that what you're doing isn't right."
No one should have to live in fear, under the rule of someone who believes that power is everything. You don't have to be a tyrant. The queen stood, pacing around her throne. Her thoughts were in turmoil. She had spent her entire life building this empire, making hard choices that no one else could make. She had always believed that strength was the only path to survival. But now, standing before this human, she wasn't sure anymore. Was there another way? Could power and compassion coexist? Could she have both? "You speak of mercy, of compassion, but those are weaknesses," the queen said, her voice betraying her frustration.
"You want me to believe that I can rule with kindness, with understanding, as if that will make my empire stronger?"
The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "Strength isn't about making people fear you. It's about making them believe in you. When people fear you, They only do what they must to survive. But when they believe in you, they will follow you willingly. They will fight for you because they want to, not because they have to. The queen stopped pacing, her breath catching in her throat. His words, they made sense. A part of her resisted, but another part of her recognized the truth in them. She had built her empire on fear, on control, on strength alone. But was that truly the only way? For the first time in her life, the queen felt vulnerable. The walls she had spent years building around her heart were beginning to crack. She had ruled for so long, but she had never felt truly connected to her people. She had never known what it was like to lead with something other than power. Could this human be right? Could her empire be different?
You speak as if you understand the nature of power, the queen said, her voice softer now. But you don't know what it takes to rule.
To make the hard choices, the sacrifices. The human nodded, his expression unchanged. Maybe not, but I know what it's like to fight for what you love. And I know that if you lead with kindness, your people will follow you with loyalty. They won't just be afraid of you.
They'll believe in you.
The queen's mind raced. She had always thought she knew the way forward. She had always believed that strength was the answer. But now, in the presence of this human, she wasn't so sure. You are not what I expected, the queen said after a long pause. You are not afraid.
You don't beg for mercy. You don't even try to make excuses.
I'm not asking for mercy, the human replied. I'm just asking you to think about what kind of ruler you want to be.
The queen stood silently, looking at him. She had always prided herself on making the tough choices, on ruling with absolute authority. But this human, this mechanic, had challenged everything she believed in. His words planted a seed of doubt in her mind, and for the first time in her life, she didn't know what the right choice was.
I will not show mercy, the queen said finally, her voice cold once more.
But I will not make a decision in haste. You will remain here for now, until I decide how to handle your fate.
The human nodded, understanding that he had not won the queen over, but that he had at least made her question her path. And that, he knew, was a start. As he was led away, the queen remained alone, lost in thought. She had made countless decisions in her life, but this one felt different. She was no longer certain that fear was the only way to rule. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was more to leadership than she had ever realized. Days passed, and the queen found herself preoccupied with thoughts she had never entertained before. She was no longer certain of the path she had always believed in. The human, a simple mechanic, had managed to crack open the walls she had spent years building around her heart. He had questioned everything she stood for, not with defiance, but with a quiet, unshakable conviction. At night, when she was alone, she would lie awake in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. The stars outside the windows twinkled like tiny, distant fires. How many worlds had she conquered? How many lives had she taken to build this empire? The queen had always justified her actions by the need for strength. She had ruled with fear because she believed it was the only way to maintain control, to ensure the survival of her people. But now, she was not so sure. The words of the human echoed in her mind.
Strength isn't about making people fear you. It's about making them believe in you. Was it possible? Believing...
Could she lead with compassion instead of fear? Could a ruler ever be truly strong without using power to control others? The queen rose from her bed and walked to the large window. She stared out at the vastness of the galaxy. Her empire spread out before her like a vast ocean of stars. Her empire was powerful, no doubt. But was it truly just? Was it truly what was best for her people? She shook her head. There was too much at stake to allow such doubts to take root. She had built the empire from the ground up, and she could not let it fall now. But even as she thought this, The seed of doubt continued to grow. She had never once questioned her rule, never once wondered if the path she had chosen was the right one, until now. The next day, she called for the human to be brought before her again. When the guards led him into the chamber, she noticed something different about him. His eyes were not as sharp as before, not as defiant. There was a weariness in his face, but also something else. Something that had been missing when he had first appeared before her. It was a kind of quiet strength, not born of defiance, but of acceptance.
"Why are you here?" she asked, her voice cold as usual, though she couldn't quite hide the curiosity in her tone.
The human bowed his head slightly, but his gaze remained steady.
You asked for me, Your Majesty.
"I did," the queen said, narrowing her eyes.
"And yet, I wonder what more there is to learn from you." The human didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at her as if he was waiting for something.
Finally, he spoke.
"What do you really want from me, Your Majesty? Why bring me here again? I have no answers to give you that will change your mind."
The queen was taken aback by his words. He had once been so full of defiance, so sure of himself, and now he spoke with resignation. It troubled her more than she cared to admit.
You speak as if I've already made my decision, the queen said, her voice cold, but she felt a strange unease in her chest. But I haven't.
You are still alive, and that is a rare thing in my empire. You may have saved your life for now, but your fate is still uncertain. The human nodded slowly, his expression unchanged.
"I know."
There was silence between them. The queen found herself at a loss for words. She had expected him to beg, to plead for his life, as most others did when facing her judgment, but he didn't. He simply stood there, waiting for her decision, as if he had already accepted whatever outcome would come. The queen studied him carefully. There was something in his calmness that unsettled her. He wasn't afraid of her. He wasn't even afraid of death. How could a human be so unafraid of her, the ruler of the most powerful empire in the galaxy? She stood, walking slowly toward him.
"You think you know everything about me, don't you?" she asked, her voice low. "You think you understand what it takes to rule.
You think you know what's best for my empire." The human looked up at her. "I don't know what's best for your empire, but I know what's best for people. For my people." The queen paused, considering his words. "For my people." It was a phrase she had never truly understood. She had always thought of her people as subjects, as pawns in her game. She ruled over them, but she never thought about what they truly needed, what they truly wanted.
You speak of people as if they matter more than power, the queen said, her voice tinged with disbelief.
"What do you know about ruling an empire, human? Power is the only thing that matters."
Without it, everything falls apart. The human's expression softened. Power without purpose is empty.
"You spent your life building an empire, but for what? To control people?"
To make them live in fear, or to protect them. Power without compassion is just a tool of destruction. It won't bring you the peace you seek. You can never make a real difference if all you care about is control.
The queen felt a surge of frustration rise within her.
She had spent so many years focused on strength, on domination, on control. Her entire identity had been built around the belief that power was the only thing that could keep the galaxy from falling into chaos. She had never once considered that there might be another way. "Enough!" she snapped. "You speak as if you know me, but you don't. You are a simple mechanic from a backwater world. You have no understanding of the weight I carry. You don't know what it's like to make the tough choices, the sacrifices." The human didn't flinch. "I know that the toughest choices are the ones that hurt the most. But those are the ones that make you better. You don't have to carry the weight alone, you know. You can choose to lead with your heart, not just your power." The queen froze, his words striking her like a blow to the chest. She had always carried the weight of her empire alone, believing that she had to bear the burden of leadership by herself. She had never allowed anyone to get close enough to help, to share the load. But now, standing before this human, she began to wonder, could she? For the first time, the queen felt something stir inside her, something she had long since buried. It was a feeling she had never allowed herself to experience. Doubt. The human's words had cracked the surface, exposing a vulnerability she had kept hidden for so long. "You speak of things I've never considered," the queen said, her voice quiet. "I've spent my entire life believing that power is the only thing that matters." But now I'm not sure. The human's gaze softened. "It's never too late to change, Your Majesty. You have the power to lead differently. You have the power to choose." The queen stared at him, his words echoing in her mind. She had spent so long building her empire, so long relying on fear and control to maintain her rule. But now, for the first time, she wondered if there was another way. Could she truly lead with compassion? Could she put the needs of her people above her own desire for power? She didn't know the answer, but for the first time in her life, she was willing to find out. The days following their conversation felt like weeks to the queen. She had always believed in certainty in power, in her decisions, in the control she held over the empire. But now, uncertainty clouded her thoughts, and she found herself thinking more and more about the words the human had spoken. Power without compassion is just a tool of destruction. She walked through the corridors of her palace, her mind preoccupied with thoughts she had never allowed herself to entertain. She passed her servants and guards, but she barely noticed them. She was no longer the queen who ruled with absolute certainty. She was someone who was questioning everything she had built. It was a cold night when she called for the human to be brought before her once more. The stars outside her palace windows twinkled as they always did, but tonight they seemed distant, almost as if they were watching her, waiting for her to make a decision. She had always been the one in control, the one who decided the fate of others, but now she felt like she was standing at the edge of something unknown, something she couldn't see clearly. The human was led into her chamber, and she watched him carefully. He was still the same, calm, composed, and unwavering. He had not changed since their first meeting, and that steadiness, that unshakable resolve, unsettled her. He did not fear her. He did not beg. He simply stood there, as if he had already made peace with whatever was to come. "You're still here," the queen said, her voice a little softer than usual. "You've had plenty of time to reflect on your actions. What do you think of your situation now?" The human met her gaze. "I think I did what I believed was right," he said. "I still believe it. I did what I had to do, and I would do it again if it meant protecting those who can't protect themselves." The queen nodded slowly, considering his words. She had heard them before, but now they carried a weight she hadn't felt before. Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Wasn't that what a ruler was supposed to do? Had she been protecting her people, or had she been controlling them? Had she been ruling with fear, or had she been ruling out of a belief that it was the only way to keep them safe? Oh. She had spent so long building her empire, so long ensuring its strength that she had forgotten what it meant to care for the people within it. She had never once stopped to think about their hopes, their dreams, their lives. She had ruled them, but had she ever truly led them? Had she ever given them the chance to believe in her, or had she simply demanded their obedience? The queen took a deep breath. It was time to make a decision. She could continue down the path she had walked for so long, maintaining her grip on the empire with fear and control. She could execute the human, just as she had executed countless others who had defied her. Or she could choose a different path. She could listen to the words he had spoken and lead with something other than power, She could lead with compassion. The thought was difficult to accept. It went against everything she had ever known, everything she had ever been taught. But now, in the presence of this human, in the presence of someone who had dared to stand up to her without fear, she realized that there was another way. She stood up from her throne and walked toward the human. He stood there, waiting, calm as always. She studied him for a moment, and then, with a steady voice, she spoke. Your actions, though they may have seemed reckless to some, were born of a desire to protect. You chose to act when others would have stayed silent, and for that, I commend you. You have shown me something I had forgotten. That strength is not just about power, but about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The human nodded, but there was no sign of victory in his expression. He wasn't here to win. He was here to make her see something.
I do not believe in mercy, nor do I believe in weakness, the queen continued, but I have come to realize that ruling with fear alone is not enough.
It is not the only way. Perhaps there is more to leadership than control. Perhaps there is more to ruling than fear. The human's eyes flickered with something like hope, though it was brief.
Maybe, Your Majesty. Maybe.
The queen paused, taking another long breath. This was the hardest decision she had ever made. The empire, the power, everything she had built. It all hung in the balance. But at that moment, she knew what she had to do. I will release you, she said, her voice calm but resolute. Your actions, your beliefs, they have shown me that there is another way. You are free to go. You will not be punished. The human's expression softened, and for the first time, he allowed a small smile to tug at the corner of his lips. He had not expected this. But even now, as he stood before the queen, he knew that something had changed. It wasn't just his fate that had been altered. It was hers as well. Thank you, Your Majesty, he said quietly. The queen nodded once, and then turned away from him. I will have my guards escort you from the palace. You are free to go wherever you wish. As the human turned to leave, the queen remained where she was, watching him go. It was over. The decision had been made. The empire, her empire, would be different now. She would lead with strength, yes, but also with compassion. She would be a queen who protected her people, not just a ruler who controlled them. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Change never was, but for the first time in her life, the queen felt as though she had made the right choice. She had chosen to lead with her heart, to lead with purpose, to lead with the belief that she could protect her people in a way that went beyond fear. And for the first time, the queen felt truly free.